But the goal is to remove the shame, and I think we can. I think we can create an alumni of people who are proud to wear the badge that they're neurodiverse.
I'm not doing anything near to what I actually want to do yet.
What is it you want to do?
What is that? What's your purpose?
I only ever wanted to be a mum. And not only am I a mum, I'm a mum to 3 neurodiverse children, which led to me getting my diagnosis.
You've got celebs, people in the public eye, who are prepared to say, I have this. The media has had to change its position. I generally don't think it's changed willingly. I think it's had to change.
Yeah.
Because public opinion is shifting.
Raise your hand if you have heard of ADHD or autism. Raise your hand if you understand it. If you truly believe that you understand, nobody.
Wow. When I started 22 years ago, there were no celebs acknowledging their neurodiversity at all. I longed for somebody to just come out of the neurodiversity closet, to give us something positive to hang on to. You can succeed, you can be, you can make it. Christine McGuinness, welcome.
Thank you.
Looking forward to a really good conversation with you. And you strike me already as a woman on a mission. And I think you've found your tribe with neurodiversity. You look at your face now, it's come alive the moment we mention it. What's made you say yes to this interview, do you think?
It's one conversation that I can hold.
Okay.
A lot of the small talk, you know, the chit chats that you hear throughout the day, I struggle to keep up with. I've always struggled with socialising. And now I understand myself more since my own diagnosis. I know that for me to stay interested, to keep focused, it's got to be something that I'm really passionate about. And I'm not just a neurodiverse woman. I'm a mum with 3 children who are also neurodiverse. So it's not just a case of me wanting to know more. I need to. I want to know everything I can do to help my children, to help me, to help others. So yeah.
You can feel it. You can feel the authenticity, like just vibrating from it.
There's an energy. The moment,
yeah,
there is an energy. You pass that on straight away. We're going to ask you a lot of questions and dig deep a little bit. What would be the question you would ask us now that you've got to know me for the last 10 minutes, quarter of an hour? What would be the question you would ask me, and we'll answer that as well.
Okay, I would ask you what is your goal? Okay. What is your goal? What are you really striving for, and is it realistic? Do you think you're going to get there?
It is a great question, and the end bit to that, the answer is yes. So the goal is to remove the shame, and I think we can. I think we can create an alumni of people who are proud to wear the badge that they're neurodiverse. And people like you, with your celebrity following and dare I call it status, are hugely important to that journey. When I started 22 years ago, there were no celebs acknowledging their neurodiversity at all. And as a senior police officer in those days, I longed for somebody to just come out of the neurodiversity closet, to give us something positive to hang on to. You can succeed, you can be, you can make it. So yeah, I think my mission is to remove the shame, change those optics, change the lens, and working with John and with people like yourself, I think we can do that. But I'm not going to do it on my own, but I think we can do that.
But there's a whole role model conversation there, which is something we've talked about before, because there was no one for you when you were growing up. So I think another piece we want to change is that education piece for teachers, for parents, for the children themselves, to understand their own behaviour.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a key part of your lived experience. So maybe we expand that now, just in terms of, you know, there's a kind of pre-understanding you had ADHD and how that ultimately affected your behaviour, and then not really knowing what you wanted to do, how you were going to get there, and being misunderstood and getting into trouble at school, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think more so for girls, teenage girls, for women, so massively misunderstood, because as we know from the history, all of the tests, all of the assessments started with young boys, not even male adults. And that is still something that needs to change. And I think when women in particular are struggling, and the minds are racing and they're forgetting things, and they can't keep up with being a mum, with doing the school run, with going to work, with trying to have a social life or a relationship, trying to do all of those things when you're ADHD, it's almost like an impossible task, and then you automatically feel like a failure. And if you're ADHD, I think that's where the embarrassment side of it comes in. If you don't know, you just feel like failure.
If you fail to, and inevitably, no matter how role aware we are, the primary carer is still seen as mum, isn't it? That could be a can of worms. It's not meant to be, but let's just accept that. If you send the child to school, your child to school without the right books, or with not having a pumps in the sports bag because of your neurodiversity, the shame is on you, isn't it? And we've got to change that. We have to give people a better opportunity. There was an expression. I was working away recently, and there was an expression used: we've got to treat women with ADHD like women. And you've talked there about the complexity. And I think the opportunity for two men and a woman to have a mature conversation about women's hormones, not an immature, jokey conversation, a mature conversation about the difficulties you have as a woman, and every woman has, managing life with we're pretty hormonal stable, and relative to comparison, it's a bloody nightmare. And for us to treat someone with ADHD with medication that then changes its efficacy, its effect, in relation to the hormonal changes going on for a woman, we have to treat as a woman with ADHD as a woman, and we have to understand the changes that occur. Does that make sense? Because you were talking about school there. I bet you were a handful at school, weren't you?
As a teenager, awful, absolutely awful. I apologise to any teacher that I might have thrown a chair in their classroom or flipped a table over. But just with what you were saying there about the embarrassing side of it, I actually think that it's not just on us, the ones who have got the ADHD with the embarrassment. It's other people need to be more open-minded and actually know that this is a real thing. We're not just wanting a label. It's not a gold star, or it's just how we are. And I think until the rest of society accept that we are different, we do think different, we feel differently, certainly with our hormones, like you just said. It's ADHD. We all know hyperactivity is involved. Just because we're not bouncing around the room full of energy doesn't mean that our feelings aren't ADHD. So, of course, when our emotions are involved, they're hyper as well.
Can I stick with that for a second?
Yeah.
You're a successful woman. You have a media presence. You're on the TV. Anybody looking at you would think, wow, what a success. I would imagine that you are very sensitive to negative thoughts and very sensitive to negative feedback and rejection as a human being. How do you manage a TV career with possibly being sensitive to those things?
I think I manage it because I'm not doing anything near to what I actually want to do yet.
Okay. What is it you want to do?
What is that? What's your purpose?
I only ever wanted to be a mum. That's all I ever wanted. And I've got that times 3. I had 2 at once, I had twins. Yeah. So I absolutely got gold stars in that one. And not only am I a mum, I'm a mum to 3 neurodiverse children, which led to me getting my diagnosis. So there, I got my own life and my own understanding, as it should have been a lot earlier. I got there. So I feel like I achieved what I set out to do. But now I think that I found my purpose, and I wasn't supposed to be just any mum. I was supposed to be their mum for all of these reasons. And the platform I've got, I'm so grateful for all of the work I've got, the TV work, because it's given me a platform where I can actually do something with purpose, with passion, something that's going to change and help others. And I already have seen the evidence in how many people I have helped just in speaking about it.
Do you get feedback? Because you've been, I'd say, really brave. You may not have even felt it at the time, because there's a lot of people now, and it's amazing how quickly times change, right? People are now coming out everywhere. You almost using potentially neurodiverse ADHD as a kind of way to get famous, maybe. But you put yourself out there and your children on a documentary.
Yeah.
Did you instantly feel the impact that made? Because you became a role model at that point. You became an inspiration. People could relate because you're just like you are now. You're just yourself. Did that come flooding into you and give you that fulfillment as well?
Massively. And I didn't realise how big it was going to be, which I'm glad about, because I think I feel a lot of pressure.
Could be overwhelming,
obviously.
right?
Yeah. And I do get nervous, and I might not have done it if I'd have known. If for us, that's our normal life. I don't know any different. I only know us as a family, but yeah, since doing it, it's been incredible. But I have noticed a huge difference in how much people are talking about themselves and their feelings, and the way we're all different. I've noticed a big change from when I first spoke about it, and it's lovely to see, because I couldn't believe it when I first spoke about my children being on the spectrum, that it was front page news. I didn't understand why it was front page news, because I was just talking about my children.
Is that because it was swept under the carpet, sort of a general, is that because there were lots of people that didn't understand themselves, saw something relatable, whether it was for them or someone around them? Oh my goodness, my husband is like that. Maybe they've got ADHD, autism and so on.
Well, it's because no one spoke about it.
Yeah.
No one has ever spoke about it, ever.
20 makes you even more brave.
Yeah.
Right?
If I go back, my career of working with ADHD, it started when I was a police officer. I was frightened of the media 22 years ago, 23 years ago, because the media was nowhere near as positive and sensitive to ADHD then as it is now. And the thought of a senior police officer saying there was a correlation between untreated or poorly managed ADHD and criminal behaviour, the fear was that we were being seen to demonise everybody as being a potential criminal because they were poorly. Now, that as it was, that very rarely manifested, but the press was still very negative, and we had to be very careful. Fast forwards to now, as we said earlier, you've got celebs, people in the public eye, who are prepared to say, I have this, and it's okay to have this. And the media has had to change its position. I generally don't think it's changed willingly. I think it's had to change because public opinion is shifting. We're not there. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but we're light years better ahead of where we were. That, why should it be front page news that you and your kids are neurodiverse? Well, it shouldn't. It's your private life. However, you're in the public eye, and there's a positive that can come out of that, and that is allowing people to see you successful in their way, and thinking it's okay to be neurodiverse. And that goes back to my mission, the shame, and having an alumni of people that can actually wear a badge and say, I am actually proud to be ADHD. I'm proud to have autism. We wouldn't be this world without neurodiverse people, would we? We wouldn't be anywhere near the adventurers, the entrepreneurs, the creators. I was very fortunate many years ago to go around the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., and the school reports of the Wright brothers who invented the aeroplane were on display. Absolutely ADHD, both of those boys at school.
And yet look what they did.
And look at what they did.
You could relate that to a number of incredibly successful people.
Absolutely.
And it's that channeling of, I guess, some people don't like the sort of terminology of a superpower, but it's hyper-focus, right?
It's that ability to be able to focus on something, but then also take that risk, take that professional risk. You've taken professional risks, like sharing your story, having that documentary. Without a shadow of a doubt, there's something that your impulsivity is allowing that to happen. So there's a big plus there. I want to talk to you about your diagnosis in a minute, but your impulsivity in earlier years of your life may not have been so channeled and not been so measured, but it's still there. It's who you are. The delightful nature of you is you've got that bit of impulsivity. Never going to take that away from you. Treatment's not going to take it away, but it's going to allow you to channel it. And that, so what you're doing, and dare I say it, others in the public eye now, is amazing. Because 23 years ago, there was nothing for me to hang my hat on as a senior cop trying to get somebody involved. Nothing at all. And it, John's introducing me to a whole group of people in a network that are going to make a difference. And this, I think this TV program, there's many podcasts on ADHD, aren't there? There's many programs about it.
Can I ask, because with Christine saying that she had an outpouring after she did the documentary in such a brave way, her question right at the beginning was, what are you trying to achieve, and do you think you'll make it? Have you felt that despite all the activity you've done and the sort of message you've got out there, not enough has happened? Is that what I was picking up on your sort of, because it feels like there's awareness now, people are talking about those, but it doesn't feel like the education system has changed. I think you told me that there's not even a manual, a handbook for women being diagnosed with ADHD, not diagnosed, but the whole, like, it's always been associated with boys. So this whole girls' ADHD is still catching up. Do you feel that that's lagging behind?
Yeah,
they're talking
absolutely.
about it. It's there in broad daylight,
Yeah.
but catch up with the whole systems that need to support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd done a speaking event not long ago. Speaking events are something, again, I've turned down for years because public speaking, being on stage, believe it or not, although I've been on television shows, actually talking in front of a big audience, I get extremely nervous. And I tell myself every time before I walk on stage, I have to remind myself that my passion is so much more and so much bigger than my fear, and that's why I do it, and that's what gets me on that stage. And one of the questions I asked in the room to the audience of around 1,000 people is, raise your hand if you have heard of ADHD or autism. Pretty much everyone raised their hand. So then I said, okay, raise your hand if you understand it, if you truly believe that you understand what is going on in somebody's mind like mine. Nobody.
Wow.
Not
So
one.
There's a massive disconnect.
There is. And let's stick with the theme of women for a second. First of all, a couple of quick fire questions, if I may. How old were you when you got diagnosed?
32.
32. And if you go back, when do you think you first became a person that demonstrated ADHD type behaviours in your youth?
God, probably junior school is my earliest memories of feeling everything a lot more than others, but I didn't realise at the time.
Yeah.
It's only when I think about my behaviour.
You've got perspective now to look back.
Yeah. Junior school, what, 9, 10, earlier?
Earlier. I remember if I was late, which I was always late because it's, time management is non-existent.
Easily distracted.
Yeah. Then I couldn't walk into the classroom. Like, that was it. I just couldn't walk. It didn't matter if I was 1 minute late or an hour late. I couldn't, and I would be pacing around. And now I understand I was stimming. I would pace up and down. I would have everything quite organised. I would have the obsessions with anything, for might be for a week, it might be for months. I would kind of hop from thing to thing. Really never ever made friends. At the most, I would have one friend at a time. That one friend would become my whole life. Mm-hmm. When that friendship would end, it would be a new friend, and then that would be everything. So yeah, really, really early. But at the time, no one would notice.
You're a classic textbook woman with ADHD. Classic textbook. It's quite delightful to hear you articulate it. It really is. What about hobbies?
Hobbies, again, it change, but the one that has always stayed consistent was being creative, and I didn't realise that it was a hobby. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was something that I enjoyed and I could sit and do for hours and hours.
What was creativity as a 9-year-old then?
Colouring in,
art,
any kind of art. It was the only lesson that I stuck to at school. From when I went to junior school, where I was almost the perfect pupil, very, very quiet, very, very quiet little girl, like quite anxious inside, mm-hmm. very, very lost. Wouldn't have displayed that in a million years. You would think she's just happy, she's quiet, so she's fine. But inside there was a lot going on. When I went from junior school to senior school, everything changed. I suddenly went from this really small school where I knew the teachers, I knew where my classroom was every day. Senior school it felt like there was thousands of people there. Every lesson was in a different block. Every teacher was a different teacher. There's these, sets of levels of how smart you are, which set you would be in, and that would go up and down. And I couldn't cope with it. I could not cope with it. And that came out in, not great behaviour.
In my first book, I refer to that as one of life's tipping points for a person with ADHD. And the transition between junior school to high school
Massive.
It is vastly misunderstood what goes on for an ADHD child. And you've just articulated what I spent a chapter of a book explaining it. You've done it much better in a much shorter time.
It's lived experience, right?
Absolutely.
You can look at it objectively and take about the lived experience.
Take the emotion out of it. And you shouldn't take the emotion out of it, because people will learn from hearing your emotion and seeing your emotion more than anything else. One of the things I'm getting interested in over time now in the clinical setting is that there you were as, if I use your life story as 7-8-year-old or whatever, and then you at the time of the tipping point of going to high school is roundabout, you're struggling with that, and then you've got puberty starts to kick in, hormone levels change, so your ADHD changes with your hormone level changing, no doubt about that. That's clinically proven. And then a woman goes on through that into becoming sexually active at whatever time that is, and that's a raw subject for most women in how that manifests. Then you get into relationships and pregnancy, hormones change again. Then we get into after we've had a child, and the risk of depression for a woman with ADHD is it's at least double the chance of a woman who's neurotypical having depression, because of changes in chemicals. Then you move on to premenopausal, perimenopausal, and the menopause in a woman's lifespan. And we're not treating women as women. You should not be ashamed of being a woman who's got a menstrual cycle that's going to affect her ADHD medication, which affects your impairment and affects your ability to be. You've got to be proud of that and say, I need change for that week. I am about to give birth. And we know that when a woman with ADHD gives birth, she's at a greater risk of feeling depressed because of the hormonal changes that occur the moment we give birth, or we have an abortion and lose a child, and so on and so on. And we're not doing enough with it. And I think part of where we can unite and work together is you're part of the way through that journey, but bloody hell, you can raise the profile of this, can't you? And start to become a champion for science becoming action.
I've got 2 daughters and son.
It's got to be better for them, hasn't it?
And for myself, I'm praying that there's something before I get to menopause. Yeah. Really am. I'm praying for everyone who lives in my house before I get there as well.
You've got the knowledge. You're surrounded by the kind of medical information, statistics, if you like. You've got that lived experience. That's powerful. So if we had the health minister, the education minister, or both sitting here now, and we had the opportunity to have a conversation we love to have, what would we actually be asking them to change and implement? Because it sounds like education's at the heart of this.
Education,
male-led, so it needs to change.
Absolutely.
And then what needs to change? That's
the thinking needs to change, and the only way we can change the thinking is to give more understanding. And if we can give more understanding, we will actually get to process change, system change, and systemic change.
Yeah. And
that's where we need to be. I've for 20 odd years, I consider my career in ADHD to be a relative failure. But now I think we use an expression at work, this is our time to make this difference. Now I'm getting introduced to people like yourself who can join on that mission with us and really start to create a volume, a swell of informed, passionate change makers. It's okay being a passionate change maker, but if you're not an informed, passionate change maker, we haven't got the complete mix. And I think the combination of your work, our work, and people like yourself makes it.
You're like informed change maker and then authenticity.
Absolutely.
Purpose led.
Yeah.
So that's the marriage, right? That's what's happening here.
I think we can make a difference. And go back to your question to me,
which was
this is our time to make a difference for women with ADHD, and we can and we should. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. When I look back at just the stages of my life, I've almost played roles, and that partly is the hyperactivity side of my emotions and my feelings.
Yeah.
And it's only now that I'm realising how it changes with my cycle, with the month, and really truly getting to know myself and trying to plan work and life around my own personal body calendar is quite a lot, and it's quite overwhelming. Yeah. Believing that somebody else, like say a boss, if I worked for somebody think about women who are ADHD in a regular job, that can't pick and choose their hours. If they're feeling how I am sometimes, they're not going to be able to just change their calendar around. So it really, really does need to change. But I was very, very much the very, very typical little girl at school. When I was a teenager, I was everything what people go, oh, typical teenager, but times 1,000.
Yeah.
When I became a mum, I was the best mum. I knew absolutely everything about my children. I knew every teacher's name. I knew what day they had PE, what day they had swimming, everything, because everything I do in every part of my life is magnified because it's hyper.
Focus.
Yeah.
And that includes
the audience, what you want to be the best.
And it includes your hormones, and that is going to be different for me than it would be for a neurotypical woman.
So sat in front of us two now, and having this powerful conversation, I reflect your question now back to you. Having listened to what we've talked about, which hopefully has given you a little bit more than when you walked in the door.
Yeah.
What's your dream, and do you think you're going to get there?
My dream is to know that my children and future generations are going to be fully understood and supported in ways that I wasn't, and in ways that many others wasn't. And it's a big dream.
It's a legacy.
Got to dream big, though, isn't it? So the second part of the question,
needed.
Do you think you're going to get there?
Yeah, I'm young. I haven't even started yet, and I've seen the dent that I've made in what I want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's so much more that could be done.
And what are your ADHD strengths that you think are going to help you on that journey?
That when I'm passionate about something, there's no stopping me, because I am that woman that will stay up all night and work on it if I'm passionate about it. And I will still carry on and do.
That's what you're doing there, right? I mean, the minute we talked about it, literally last week, calendar out, this is what I want to be doing more of. This is what I get up in the morning to try and make the change, make the necessary changes that are going to benefit future generations, not just your own children, right? I've got 2 daughters growing up. You've built an amazing, big community of people through your social media following, and you must get an outpouring of people, a bit like me now. Yeah. It's like my children and so on. Can that influence anything in the world of enforcing change, do you think? Because you've got a tribe there. You're going to commit your life to this.
The key is we've got to get people to be informed. We've got to get people informed and then passionate, not passionate then informed then passionate, and then we can make a change. So yeah, we can and we will. And I think if I wrap that up in where you are, your mission is very much aligned to our mission, my mission, whatever. So we can do this.
I believe so.
I'll put any wind I can in the sails to get there.
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah.
It sounds depressing, but I cannot leave this planet peacefully until I know that my children and others are going to be looked after and supported.
More than you were.
I went through too much. Yeah. I went through far too much to just sit back and watch it happen again to all the little girls and boys that are misunderstood.
Well, that's
a great reason to,
and that's a great strapline to pull out of this interview to set this up for people. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thanks, Christine.
And I genuinely, hand on heart, believe that it's a problem that is solvable and fixable. We should be able to bring the numbers down rather than what's happening at the moment where things are spiraling out of control.
But from an evolutionary point of view, these things exist for a reason, otherwise evolution would have weeded them out. Probably a better and deeper question is, why do we have ADHD? Like, what is it for?
There's just a misunderstanding that there is a deficit of attention, where actually, if you look at it for what it is, it's that we have interest-led brains.